A badge of honor. Police officers and first responders wear badges to let their communities know they are here to protect and serve. But that's not how it feels today, and the stress of the job is taking its toll, taking lives through suicide and post-traumatic stress injury. A Badge of Honor podcast features the cast of the same name, Sam Horwitz and John Salerno. Sam, John, and the team offer the first responders workshops through their critical incident stress management teams and mental health liaisons to offer state-certified T-Cole credit programs that save lives. It's time to smash through the stigma. It's time to heal from your injury, and it's time to back our blue. Welcome to A Badge of Honor podcast. Here are your hosts, Sam Horwitz and John Salerno.
Hey, welcome to A Badge of Honor podcast with John and Sam. We are powered by the OBBM network, and I don't think there's a mainstream that we are not on. And if we aren't on it, put us on it, because this is what Mental Health Monday is all about. It's about, learning the resources, getting different perspectives from so many people across the country and in so many different fields. And that's what you need. You need a toolbox full of different tools that you may use or you may not use. Not everything's for each individual, but you know what? You may be able to pick that tool up and say, hey, this helps me. Hey, Sam, how you doing?
Hey, John, doing great on this. I'll say it's a wild and windy Monday. If you guys don't know, John and I, we're coming to you live from Texas, and we got, I think it's tropical storm barreling down. So our thoughts and prayers go out to all of those impacted up the eastern coast of Texas into some kind of central South Texas. Please stay safe, and obviously, don't go out. We got trees coming down, and for sure there'll be a lot of cleanup to do. You and I are on the outskirts. You mostly in the west,
Right.
but yeah. So we got to just keep thinking about everybody here in Texas, south and east. And, we've also got to send our prayers up to our NYPD family, John.
Yeah, I was getting word. I'm just going to say we're going to send some prayers out. We're going to dedicate today's show to all the members of the NYPD for a loss of emergency service officer who has come from a family of officers. And, this is it was a tragic loss, and we just we hear these things all the time, and we want to bring them forward because our heroes don't deserve to be stressed and go out in certain sorts of manners, and we want to make sure that we're there to help. So that's why the toolbox is so important. Fill it with so many different tools. Our guest today, I was doing a little research, and when we talk about post-traumatic stress, Sam, we've talked to so many psychologists and psychiatrists and counselors and experts in the field, and what we find out is, post-traumatic stress is just a portion of what brings us down in our mental health, which puts us into that rabbit hole. There's a lot of things that build up around us, and one of them, the number one, really, is financials. I was looking today, and it said that, causes of stress, not only in our first responder fields, but in any household, is financials. 73% of people stress over money, and mostly because they are not prepared for either a tragedy, an incident, a hurricane. They didn't prepare correctly because, that old saying, save for a rainy day. Most of us don't. We live in that sunshine. We like, oh, we can go splurge on this, and then we regret it, and it impacts our mental health extremely when we don't have the funds to do something, to fix something, to pay for something, whatever. And our guest today is going to show us how we can cut some of that stress out by some simple tools that she has for us.
Yeah, and absolutely talking to the first responder community, because we tend to use overtime not only as a way to distract us from dealing with the stress, but it's a cycle that a lot of us just get trained up into because it's the way that it's been done, and it has to stop, because who suffers in the end? You've got the stress on the first responder, but it also carries over to the family. So let's get right into it with Rebecca Jameson. She runs Priority One Financial Coaching, and she has got an amazing story. She's a law enforcement spouse, and well, she and her husband had, well, I'll let you tell the story. Welcome, Rebecca.
Hey, welcome, Rebecca.
On our
Thank you.
podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah. Like Sam said, my husband is a sheriff's deputy here in California, and we've been married for about going on 6 years. Actually, it'll be 6
Oh,
years.
you better get that one right.
Yeah. You have to think about that.
It's usually I usually get in trouble for that, you know.
And I'm the one who deals with numbers all day long. But my husband and I, we've been married for 6 years. We've been together for a little over 7. And we didn't really start tackling finances until like halfway through our marriage. We had got ourselves into this situation where my husband was working so much overtime. And then when we would look at our bank account, just a couple days before the next paycheck, we're like, why does this number look the same as if you worked your base pay or you worked, 20, 30 hours of overtime in the pay period? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, where is all that money going? And so it became very frustrating because, especially now with the climate out there, my husband was out there working extra hours in this environment, and we didn't feel like we were reaping the benefits from it. And so we really had to sit down with ourselves and get honest and really look each other in the face and look ourselves in the mirror and say, okay, we're doing something wrong here. And this actually happened on a vacation. So we do the same annual vacation every summer. And that year we decided, like, we're going to figure this out on this vacation. And so the first day we were there, we sat down and we just listed out all of our debts. And then we started going through and just really like fine tooth comb through our bank statements. Like, where is our money going?
While you're on vacation?
While we were on vacation, I know
That's not vacation.
Well, sometimes it's the best because there's nothing distracting you. You're together.
When you're on vacation, you got to splurge, because now you're doing this going, oh, we were going to go to dinner, but you know what?
That's the problem. That's where your money was going, right, Rebecca?
Oh, 100%. We are definitely a couple who loves experiences over tangible things. So yes, a lot of our money was going towards various credit cards that we had put, vacations on, or we realized at that time, and I think most people could probably relate to this, because we don't really pay attention to what we're spending on eating out. Mm-hmm. And aside from, the trips and things like that, our biggest monthly expense that we realized at that time was actually eating out. This was the summer of 2021. So we're a year past, the start of COVID. So what was really popular during that time was like the DoorDash and the Uber Eats and all of that, right? So we really got accustomed to utilizing those services, because it was, especially for a first responder family where the schedule's so crazy, it's such a convenience, and it makes it so easy to just like, oh, I'm just going to order the food to be delivered. But when we went through and calculated everything, we were spending over $1,000 a month just on eating out.
Wow.
Between me going to Starbucks, him hitting the drive-through on shift, and then ordering all that, that food to be delivered, it was astronomical. And so, we tallied up our debt, and it was, at that time, it was a little over 80 grand. And that was outside of our mortgage. And so that was very shocking to us. I think we had like 18 different debt accounts.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so we realized that, hey, we are definitely not doing what we're supposed to be doing. And we need to figure out a way to get out of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
And we got to take our first break, but we're going to leave everybody on a cliffhanger because you discovered there is a way out of it and you got very focused. It's a little bit on your in the bio section, a little bit on the about section on your website. But let's talk about that when we come back. Stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back.
Move freely, America, without medical restrictions or penalty. Without medical freedom legislation in place, our rights and freedoms are one vote away from being dissolved. Move freely, America, with one voice, without fear of retribution, achieving a common goal, medical freedom. We the people make our voices heard by connecting with state legislators and engaging a constitutionally compliant medical Bill of Rights for all citizens. Individually, change is improbable, but as an aggregate, attainable. It's time to act with one voice. My voice.
And my voice.
And my voice.
And my voice.
To protect our freedom, creating one voice that cannot be ignored. This requires your voice, too. Move Freely America. Go to movefreelyamerica.org to find a chapter near you. Plug in, donate, and help our legislators defend our God-given rights under the Constitution. Move Freely America. My voice.
And my voice.
And together with your voice, we're one voice that cannot be ignored. Donate today. MoveFreelyAmerica.org.
Hey, welcome back to a Badge of Honor podcast with John and Sam and our guest, Rebecca Jameson with Priority One Financial Coaching. I had to put on my studious glasses because I'm going through now. Now I'm looking at
Yeah.
Damn it.
It makes us look smarter.
Yeah. Before we left, before the break, we were talking about, we're all in debt. We, so many people live paycheck to paycheck. Well, not you, Secret Service girl, but that's the federal government stuff. But the rest of us peons out here, we live paycheck to paycheck, and it's because of the door dashes, it's because of high credit cards, because we don't pay cash anymore. They've made it so easy for us to go into debt, and by the time we realize it, we're in a hole. Just like a rabbit hole of mental health, we're in a rabbit hole of financial debt, and it's scary. And like you said, you got to sometimes take that hard look and tighten that belt. And a lot of people don't know how to do that.
Yeah. Oh, it's totally true. So one of the things that my husband and I did, because we were the same, like we had no idea where to start, because both of him, we came from, different backgrounds financially. My husband grew up very poor, so he had his own experience around money. I grew up in a middle-class family, but I remember the only real conversations I ever remember my parents having about money was when there wasn't enough. And so we didn't really have the guidance from our parents on what to do. We were just always told things like, make sure you pay your bills on time and make sure you put money into savings. But we were putting money into savings only to take it right back out again. So obviously,
I did what I was told. I put it in there. They didn't tell me not to take it out.
It's sort of kind of saving because you save for a period of time.
Right. Exactly.
Right, yeah.
And so really to get started, we jumped on the Dave Ramsey bandwagon for a little bit. Dave Ramsey can be very polarizing for a lot of people. There are law enforcement families that have gone through his program and been successful. And then there have been families that are like, absolutely not. This is not my thing. Like, no. So my husband and I, we fell somewhere in the middle because we loved the structure of it. It was easy to follow, 7 baby steps. The only problem for us that we came across is that we didn't want to feel guilty for how we chose to spend our money while we were paying off our debt. Right? We didn't want to, live on beans and rice. We didn't want to stop having our vacations. We didn't want to completely eliminate the fun from our life until we paid off our debt.
Because that's another stress.
Exactly. Yeah. Because especially for law enforcement, is like we need that time to decompress. And oftentimes that time to decompress is not just sitting at home in front of the TV, right? You need to get out and do things. You need to experience the world. And most of the time, that means you have to spend a little bit of money. And so we wanted to find that balance between paying off our debt, saving money, and then still enjoying our money in the present. And so that's kind of what we set out to do. We discovered, we said, okay, these are our minimum debt payments. We decided to use the debt snowball, which is recommended by Dave Ramsey. For those who aren't familiar, the debt snowball is basically listing all of your debts in order from smallest balance to largest balance. You pay minimums on everything, and then you take whatever extra money you can and put it towards the smallest debt. And so the whole point being is that once that smallest debt is paid off, then whatever you were putting towards that debt, you take it and apply it to the second debt. And so it creates this snowball. So by the time you get to the bottom of your list, your snowball is like this big and you're just paying debt off like crazy. So for us, that worked really well because we had a lot of accounts that had small balances. And so like right off the bat, the first month, I think we were able to eliminate like 6 of our debt accounts because they was so like, a few $100s here, a couple, 20, 40, $50 here, there, and so we really felt the momentum of it. And we were so encouraged that we started to take things a little bit of a step further and decided that that we were going to start reducing our expenses so we could create even more of that snowball to help us pay off our debt quickly.
Well, a lot of it is out of sight, out of mind for people. Like the debts, when you finally sat down and you saw it, it's like, oh my gosh, when did we even do that? Right. And it's like everything that we do online or the app that we download on our phone, we put in our information and we've got a revolving, whether it's a sorry, getting a little bit of feedback, whether it's a subscription or something else, we forget about it. And that's the whole point of how our system and what our system has become, from the banking to, and the way that looks, especially after the Patriot Act, it was passed back in 2001, to everything that we do in our everyday. If we're not keeping tabs on it, it is designed to keep you paying your mortgage forever, paying those subscription fees forever. And there's so much distraction that we don't even realize.
I'm still a member of Columbia House.
I'm barely old enough.
Oh, I remember that. Except I closed that account a long time ago.
For a penny, you can have 13 tapes.
Right.
Yeah. 18 years later.
I'm so glad you brought up the mortgage piece too. I love bursting people's bubbles when it comes to our homes being an investment, so to speak. And I didn't realize this until, we had already bought our home and we were already on this financial journey. But one thing that I work with my clients on is, okay, number one, how much of a house can you afford, right? I think that's the biggest thing, especially nowadays here in California. Good luck finding something under $400,000. California is expensive. Even for a 1,200 square foot home like we have, it's like you're not going to get anything cheaper than that. But what a lot of people think, because we have this whole idea oh, our home is an investment, so we don't think so much about how much it's going to cost us in the long run, right? And so there's this argument on, is it better to rent or is it better to own your own home? And, the argument is, if you rent, you're paying somebody else's mortgage, but if you own, then you're essentially paying yourself, right? The only thing that we don't keep in mind is that interest rate that is not going to us, it's going to the bank. And even for us, when we bought our house, we have a 3.49% interest rate on our home. So we're not selling anytime soon. But even with a 3.49% interest on a 30-year loan, the loan amount almost doubles.
Yeah,
so
because
our house is
right.
Yeah. And so really it becomes a wash at the end, right? And it's only an asset if it's generating you money. And this is a wash.
Right.
So, and then that doesn't factor in home maintenance, right? How often do home maintenance needs come up? I mean,
Right.
we learned that.
When you own a home, it's the reality of it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
those are the types of things that I make sure that, okay, yes, let's have a debt payoff strategy, right? Because that's important. But also, what are the things that we need to set money aside for so you don't go back into debt, right? So
that's
the home
awesome.
maintenance,
Yeah.
and the vehicle maintenance and the medical expenses, right? So all of that, we should be saving up for that ahead of time. So that way, when they happen, the money's already there.
So that's one thing on your website that I want to talk about when we come back, because in your bio, you go into the fact that, you took out the life insurance. Your husband is a deputy in the sheriff's department. So, by nature, stuff could happen. So you got to set yourself up. We will talk about that when we come right back from our next break, everybody. Stay tuned.
Look, when you need to respond to an aggressive situation to protect yourself, your family, or your property, understanding your firearm and legal position are critical. Officers know your skills are only as good as your commitment to training. So know what you're doing. So when you're in a vulnerable situation, we can count on your response. Whether you're a beginner or a licensed gun carrier, Carry in Texas offers basic firearms training, Texas permitless carry courses, license to carry, and basic 2A courses so you can understand the responsibilities, situational awareness, and learn the technical skill required when you carry your firearm. Go to carryintexas.com to find the right course for you. Join me, former United States Secret Service agent Samantha Horwitz, on the range for beginner basics, LTC prep, and range practice. Go to carryintexas.com today. That's carryintexas.com.
Hey, welcome back to a Badge of Honor podcast with John and Sam, with Rebecca Jameson with One Financial
Priority One Financial Services coaching. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's a mouthful.
So is finances. Finances is a mouthful. And before we left, we were talking about our homes and what we believe is an investment, and credit card debt, and we take all of this money and we put it into something that we may not get it all back. It's a gamble. And like you said, home repairs and interest rates. And like I took a 15-year mortgage. My interest rate's just a little bit. I got 2 more years left. I got it at 4%, and we're happy about that we took the 15 over the 30, because you don't know what's going to happen as you get older in age, and things get cut and taxes go up and things are going to start costing. So that savings that you were talking about, that nest egg, that little bit each month or week or bi-weekly, whatever it is going to start to build up, as long as you have the discipline not to touch it.
So let's get straight to the heart of the matter and throw out the "it will never happen to us," conversation, because let's face it, a lot of people look at, I'll get life insurance, when over here, I'm young, I'm a cop, I'm in the prime, what could happen? Hello, the fact that we're walking around with targets on our backs every single day. This is something that goes in the budget as a must-have. Most law enforcement, first responders, you can't get disability insurance just by the rules of disability. But you want to take care of things for the, oh my God, hopefully it will never happen. But these are the kind of things you have to think about instead of, again, put off.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll be honest with you, I was so naive when it came to life insurance and my husband's profession. So for the first 3 years, he didn't have a policy besides what he had through the department, which was like $10,000.
Yeah.
So to look back and like be like, oh, what a fine line we were walking. And so as soon as we realized that, like, we jumped on the ball and we said, okay, we need to get ourselves a good life insurance policy. And we actually just renewed his, because and for anybody who's listening, reach out to me. I can always refer you to this company. But there is a company here in California, but they are nationwide. Like, they help nationwide. They specifically work with first responders on finding the best life insurance policy, long-term care policies, things like that are just kind of that umbrella that help protect you and give you that peace of mind in the event something tragic happens. And it's really, really important. And so when it comes to life insurance, it's twofold. So one, I know it's pretty common within a law enforcement or first responder couple. There's a lot of times where the first responder is the breadwinner. They are the sole income of the household. And so the focus is generally on them to get a life insurance policy. But I also encourage, even if, you are a stay-at-home parent, you also need a life insurance policy, because if something were to happen to you, there is a cost associated with the job that you perform in the house, right? There's childcare costs. There's cleaning costs, right? There's cooking, shopping, all of that has a monetary value attached to it, that if you are not there, somebody has to make up for that. And oftentimes it's either we hire out, or, we find other means we have to supplement with, more eating out, because we don't have time to cook dinner at home, because now it's a single parent household. So the general rule of thumb for life insurance is to hold a policy that is 10 times your annual income. And it should be a term policy, not a whole life policy. A whole life policy has a different function that we don't even need to go into today because it's very complex, but you don't have as much of a benefit and it costs a lot more. So the term policies, you can get a $500,000, $1 million policy, it's depending on your health, for like $80 to $100 a month. So it's relatively cheap to find a policy that is going to substantially cover your spouse in the event if something tragic were to happen to you on shift, or even just, in general. And so there's a lot of different policies out there too. So again, if either anybody listening wants to hear a little bit more, I do have a referral partner that is excellent, and that's what they specialize in. They specialize in helping first responders get all of those insurances set up so they are protected in the most extreme scenarios.
Rebecca, when you talk about whole life and term life, to a young officer or a young first responder, that's all Greek to them a lot of times, especially when they're in their mid-20s and they're single and they're just coming out of mom's house and dad's house. What are some of the key factors to look for when you search out for? I know you said term. You want to go with a term life insurance. But what are some of because these things can get very confusing to even anybody. But for the young guys, what are like two things that they should really look out for when searching for a life insurance policy?
Well, I would definitely say what the cost is versus what the benefit is, right? And so you will see that very starkly when you're looking at, okay, what does it cost for this $500,000 or $1 million policy in a term? And what does this $250,000 whole life policy cost? And it's a stark difference. Like, you're looking at probably double the price for less of a benefit with that whole life policy than you are with term. And now the thing with term is you set it for 20, 30 years. And then what you need to make sure is that when you are getting that policy, that you have something at the end of that policy that then converts it to a whole life policy. Because, like, for example, if you're a 20 or 30-year-old looking to get life insurance, right? Term policies are going to be anywhere from 20 to 30 years. That's generally what it is. It's for a certain amount of time. It's really just there to protect you in your prime. And so 20 to 30 years, let's say for a 30-year-old, you are now 60, right? If you do a 30-year policy. So at that point, if you tried to renew and get another term policy, it's going to be so expensive. It's going to be so expensive. And so there are policies out there now that once you reach that term, that policy automatically converts to a whole life policy that will cover you for, the remainder of your time.
Oh, wow. Well, we are having a super in-depth conversation about life insurance with Rebecca Jameson from Priority One Coaching, financial coaching. John, you got me thinking about it. Priority One Financial Coaching. And we're going to take our next break. But when we come back, we're going to talk about, you've got a podcast and it's called Coaching for a Reason. So we're going to talk about your coaching programs. We'll be right back, everybody. Stay tuned.
Interested in starting a podcast or TV show? Worried about what you'll say and how to keep it engaging? Think you'd like to be a guest on podcast, radio, or TV shows? Hi, I'm Susan Hamilton, owner and founder of OBBM Network, and I would like to invite you to an OBBM media training to get the tools you need for a relaxed and polished performance you'll be proud to share. Our specialized training techniques include role play, voice training, and everything you need to deliver a confident, clear, and engaging interaction. Go to offbeatbusiness.com. Go to the calendar and register for a training that's convenient for you. Dates available now, 214-714-0495.
Hey, welcome back to a Badge of Honor podcast with John and Sam, with Rebecca Jameson, with Priority One Financial Coaching. Whoo, got it. Before we left, we were talking about those hard questions. Either the hard question is sitting down with your spouse and discussing the finances and writing them all down, right up until death, whole life versus term life. But these are things that we have to put in place as first responders, because we never know. Like Sam said, it can happen to us. Well, it can happen to us, and it happens to people every single day. So we have to take this as serious as possible and reach out to a financial coach and say, hey, what's the best avenue for me? Because everybody's different. What's the best avenue for me? So Rebecca, before we left too, we're going to talk about your podcast and how people can get tips.
Yeah, absolutely. So I did start a podcast. It's called the Blue Line Money Podcast. I think I have like 6 or 7 episodes up there. I am going to be transitioning it because I was trying to figure out a way. It's like, I really want to start making the conversation of money a little bit more enjoyable and not so much like statistics and facts and you should be doing this and you need to invest here and, oh, are you saving for this? Like, I want it to be a more organic and entertaining idea. So I'm going to be revamping that. So I don't know when that's going to like resume, hopefully sometime in the next few months. But there's a few episodes up there that are jam-packed of just great information. But also too is like, I'm pretty active on Instagram and I'm constantly doing reels and, giving advice pretty much on a weekly basis on, the different types of things that I work on with my clients.
And I've got for everybody listening on your favorite podcast app, you can reach Rebecca and find out more at her website, PriorityOneFC.com. That's priority, and one is spelled out ONEFC.com. And so let's talk about your coaching programs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I have 2 different directions. So the way that I started is just by doing just like organic one-on-one coaching sessions with law enforcement or first responder couples, families, whatnot. And so essentially what that looks like is I always start my clients off with, I call it a discovery session. It's a 2-hour session and it's really a deep dive into your finances. And then if debt is something that you're struggling with, or you have challenges in like saving money or not knowing what to save for or how to save, all of that is covered in that 2-hour session. And so essentially my clients walk away with a functional budget, a realistic budget, a debt payoff strategy, as well as the start of some type of savings strategy as well. So that way you really just have a full idea of, where you are at currently with your finances, and then, where do you want to be? And then I start giving you those action steps to kind of fill the gap. One of my favorite client success stories, I had a law enforcement officer who came to me and they said, I need to file for bankruptcy. And I said, whoa, like pause, like let's hit the pause button here. I want you to give me a month and I will show you that you do not need to go the bankruptcy route. And I kid you not, we had 2 1-hour, we might've had 3 1-hour sessions before we were fully had things kind of like packaged. But by that third session, they had already paid off 4 of the debts that they had and were on track to being debt free in a 1.5 years. And so instead of going the bankruptcy route, now they had a full blown plan. Not only were they paying off their debt, but they were putting money into savings each paycheck. And they had they were able to really understand where their expenses were. They were able to identify those expenses that they wanted to, temporarily reduce. I always tell people it's temporary. Like, if you hire somebody who has like every streaming service known to man that you're paying,
Right.
Right. Okay. Temporarily, let's scale back on some of those. And then once we get things under control, you can start bringing those back as you need it. Right. So nothing's just set in stone. Like you can't have that ever. But it's like, what do we need to do right now to help resolve the bigger picture? And then we can start reintroducing some of those, luxury expenses, once you get things kind of figured out.
How many people do you figure when you said budgets? And now when you think about like people, especially young kids today, they'll look at budgets as, oh, well, it's a business. Businesses have to have budgets. But when you're in a partnership with somebody, especially when you're married and you have a spouse, you have to budget because that's a corporation, more or less. It's a marital corporation, but it's a corporation.
Mm-hmm.
How many people do not budget correctly?
Oh, a majority.
Or have a homeowner's budget.
Or invest.
Yeah. A majority of people are, if they are keeping and sticking to a budget, are probably doing it wrong. And the reason being, and I was somebody, I always kept the budget for our household. This is how I used to do our budget. I used mint.com, which I don't know if you're familiar with. They just got bought up by, I think, NerdWallet. But so I used mint.com. I loved it. Connected to my bank account. I had my list of all of our bills. I would plug in my budget each month, and then I would see whatever that number was at the end after all of our bills and expenses were allocated. And I'm like, cool, this is how much money we have to spend on whatever the heck we want. But we didn't make a plan for that whatever the heck we want money, right? So I was doing it wrong.
Or the roof of the house needing to be repaired, or yeah.
Exactly. So really, I worked in the public school sector for 15 years. And we always operated on a zero-sum budget, right? This is the income that we have coming in for the year. This is how we're allocating it into all of the expenses or projects or whatnot. You should be operating your budget the same way. You get your paycheck in, all of that money needs to be signed to a job. So your end balance of your budget is zero. Now, some of those jobs are going to be putting money into savings or putting money into investments, right? So you're going to allocate money to your expenses and then make sure that you're allocating money to savings and investments as well. And then of course, try to make sure that you have enough room to have some fun in there too.
That's, and with that, talking about like the DoorDash and stuff, we're in a generation that wants instant gratification. So even though a year doesn't sound like a lot, and it's really not a long time or a 1.5 years to pay off all this stuff, people are like, no, I want it done tomorrow, or, instant gratification. So when you and your husband sat down to tighten that belt, it's probably the hardest thing for anybody to do, but it gets easier, correct?
It does, yes. And I will say this, my husband and I, we didn't have too much guidance going into this. And so that's why I'm so grateful that I get to work with law enforcement families and hopefully kind of steer them away from some of the mistakes that my husband and I made. So I think one of the biggest mistakes that we made is we really went like full throttle, pedal to the metal, like how much overtime can he work so we can pay off this debt quickly?
Get out
And
of the house.
the problem with that is the burnout happens so much quicker. And we learned probably about a year into it, we learned that, okay, we need to start figuring out what do we need to do for him to scale back and us still be able to pay off our debt. Maybe that means our payoff goal gets pushed out by 6 months. Okay. I'd rather that and be able to have time to spend with him, time that is not. Yeah, exactly. We're not going to get it back. And then, time for him to decompress too, right? Because you can't work, 6-7 days a week and decompress from the job. There's no time for you to do that. And so that's one of the things that, overtime can be leveraged. And I think you should leverage it if you're able to, but not to the detriment of your mental, emotional, and physical health.
And that really is the key, is that it bleeds over. And why don't we talk a little bit more about that when we come back from our next break? We'll be right back, everybody. Stay tuned.
To the Health Engineer Show. I'm Clint Buckley, the Health Engineer, right here on the Offbeat 50.
Hi, I'm Larry Corkamp.
Hi, my name is Susan Hamilton, and you're watching Offbeat.
Hi, this is Doreen Milano. Welcome to Big Ideas Small Business, where we will talk to Terry Arjala.
Hey, welcome back to a Badge of Honor podcast, and you can get out of debt as quick as that commercial with John and Sam.
Only.
and our special guest, Rebecca Jameson, with Priority One Financial Coaching. We're talking about everything bleeds into each other, like you said, Sam. Everything bleeds in when we talk about our mental health, our relationships, finances, our job, our time. And if we don't have control of each and every one of them, that's when we can fall down that rabbit hole and we figure that there's no way out. And we turn around and say, well, screw it all. We're going to go bankrupt and just wash our hands of it. But there's a solution. All right. Just like in mental health, we work on that hair trigger all the time. We said, life's so bad, I'm bailing out. I'm taking myself out. Take a breath. There's always a solution. There's a way out. And Rebecca, you're providing tools to 73% of the people that are feeling the same thing. When me and Sam say you're not alone in mental health because of the post-traumatic stress, you are not alone in your financial battles as well.
Right.
Everybody's struggling. There are people going through the same thing. And Rebecca, you're helping us out. You're helping, our younger generation prepare for the future.
Yeah. And one of the other things, because I mentioned, because you had asked, what does my coaching services look like? So one of the pivots that I started to make this past year is I started actually working with agencies themselves. So here in California, I don't know if other states are doing this, but I know California is. They really kind of started to focus on officer wellness within agencies. And so the state actually gave every agency across the state a grant. It was just no questions. Well, no questions asked. You still have to apply it to the officer wellness, but basically, like, here's a pot of money. You guys figure out what to do with it to create your officer wellness program. And so I am starting to contract with agencies, and the agency is actually paying for my services. So for their officers and their employees to come and work with me. And so now that really works for the larger agencies, right? Your sheriff's departments that cover, have a larger department, so they have a larger budget. So one of the other things that I'm looking into right now as well is trying to see what grants are out there to maybe help some of the smaller agencies that probably wouldn't normally be able to afford this type of training or, one-on-one coaching for their officers, and do it through grants.
Like when I went to the police academy in New York, I remember when just before we were graduating, they had different people come in and they would discuss finances, but real quick, maybe a 1 hour thing, and that was it. And when you're young, you forget about it. Shouldn't this be part of the curriculum in the academy throughout, as you're learning all the different penal codes and everything else? So if it's 8 weeks, you should have a financial planner in there within those 8 weeks, constantly doing this and and doing that muscle memory, because when they graduate, they'll remember it, just like they do with the laws and everything else.
Yeah, absolutely. And California has started. They were testing like a financial wellness to be part of their post certification. I don't know if they've moved forward with that. I know it was in the testing phases. So I think it's starting to trickle out there. People are really starting to pay attention that this really is a big, important part of overall wellness for our officers and other first responders. Because like you said, John, this is one of the biggest stressors that most of us deal with. And the sad thing is we all just kind of accept it as the norm, because everybody else is feeling this way. So what's the other option?
Right.
Well,
exactly.
and also understanding the way that the systems are rigged to benefit the system instead. And so once you understand that, it's taking ownership and taking it back from them. And it's okay to X out and be like, I'm not going in this direction anymore because I need to go in this. And again, a lot of people don't take the time, and that's why we have people like Rebecca, and why it's so important, because our lives are busy, especially our first responders out there. Whether it's the single breadwinner or both, the whole family is in law enforcement, and sometimes it's okay, I'll see you in the dark when I'm going to bed, and that person's getting up, and then it's really difficult to come together because the shifts are different. So, Rebecca, what is the best way for people to reach out to you? How can they follow you? I've got, again, if you want to go right to the website, Priority1, all spelled out, ONEFC.com. That's your website. Where do you play most on social, where people can
Yeah,
connect?
I'm on Instagram most of the time, at Blue Line Money Coach. Okay. I am starting to be a little bit more active on LinkedIn. I'm still learning it, but I feel like there's more law enforcement agencies and officers on LinkedIn than there are on Instagram. Instagram, I got all my wives on that side, and so I'm trying to get in front of the officers as well. But yeah, so Instagram at Blue Line Money Coach, LinkedIn, Rebecca Jameson. You can probably search Priority One Financial Coaching and it should pop up. And then if you just want to email me direct, it's Rebecca at priority1fc.com. So just like the website, but with Rebecca at in front of it. Yeah.
And are you on Facebook as well?
I am. Yes. I'm on, it's Priority One Financial Coaching on Facebook.
Okay. So folks, there are plenty of ways to connect with Rebecca. Start the conversation. If you're in a department that hasn't talked about finances, John got his 1 hour. We had mandated first day on the job. We didn't go to a desk. We went to meet with the financial planners to understand how much money from each paycheck we should be putting away. And again, it differed, those of us that were single versus married, what that looked like. So get with Rebecca, especially if you're a first responder family. Take advantage of her coaching, because as you heard about our deep dive into the life insurance and the whole life and how that works, she is connected, she understands, and she can get you set up. Rebecca, thank you so much. Any last words for
one thing, Sam, I just want to bring up to all our first responders out there, the financial burden, when we're stressing on finances, we get that same cortisol dump in our brain that stresses us out. But you said something before, Rebecca, that when that snowball effect. Once you started paying off those little small ones, you got that motivation. So now you get another chemical effect, the feel-good effect, right? So the dopamine, where you can high five and go, man, I'm doing this. So I love the connection there, where you go from the stressed out financial cortisol dump to a good dopamine dump, a feel-good drug, where now you can high five and say, I'm accomplishing something. So these are all great tools that you brought forth, and I thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much. And check out Rebecca's podcast episodes and go to her website because you're going to want to read the blogs.
Yes.
She has great blog articles that can set the tone and then dive right into that 2-hour discovery call. So, Rebecca, thank you so much for coming on. And we appreciate your deep dive in the explanation of everything, because it's not always stuff that people understand, because it's always it's too surface, you know.
So thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Take care.
Take care, Rebecca.
All right, we'll be in touch.
All right.
So this was fantastic. I love the deep dives. Love whether it's a practitioner or something like money, because if you don't understand it, it's just going to continue to just go over the head. Speaking of money, once you get your debt paid down, whether you tithe or whatever your piece, the experts like to say, take 10%, or if you can, to put aside to donate. Our first responders out there, the mental wellness piece, finances, like John said, play a huge part in that. And what we do in our workshops is we address the mental health aspect, from awareness to what is going on inside our bodies, to what is post-traumatic stress injury, and beyond, and how to combat the stress effects of it. ABadgeofHonor.org. We ask for your donations to give back to our first responder communities right there on the website. Just click the blue donate button. For everybody that joins us every week, thank you so much. Thanks for all your likes. For everybody that's subscribing, if this is your first time watching, click that notification bell if you're on YouTube or wherever you're watching, so that you get notified every time we go live, so you don't miss an episode, because this is about putting more tools in your toolbox. So continue, to like and subscribe. Thank you. We have got a bunch of upcoming events. August 7th, John and I will be in Irving at First Responders Conference, telling our stories and speaking about a badge of honor, but also those tried and true tactics and wellness strategies, which include your active participation. So that is in Irving. And what I did is I put the link to where you can get tickets. It's free, but you do need to register online. So you can do that through our website. Click on events. It'll take you to the calendar. Also upcoming in September, we've got 2 events on September 6th. If you are in the city of Rowlett and you serve the community there, we are doing a workshop for you all, sponsored by the city. So it's for police, fire, dispatch, EMS, any of the forensics, any investigator, got to be with City of Rowlett. That link to register is up as well. And then on the 20th, we are doing a joint workshop with our friends at Our Watch, who do the equine therapy, and Heroes on the Water, that are out there paddling and fishing on kayaks. Come out, take a day away from work, get out on the water, get out in nature with the horses, and get with us. Those details are forthcoming. But again, all of our events you can find by going to our website, abadgeofhonor.org, and clicking on events. And you've got our entire calendar. For all the first responders out there, we are praying for you every single day. Thank you for keeping our communities safe and answering the calls, because they are sometimes tough. And for all of our veterans out there, thank you for swearing that oath, fighting the battle, wherever that was, so that we can have the freedom to do a podcast like this every week and talk about whatever we want. To all of our active duty personnel spread out across the globe, thank you for what you are doing, keeping our shores safe here at home. John, take us home.
Just our prayers go out to the families of the NYPD. And once again, like finances is always a solution. You're not alone in any of the battles that you're facing. You are, we share those battles with you. So take a step back, a breath, and use the tools that are in your toolbox that apply to you. And until next week, peace.
See you next week, everybody. Take care.
A Badge of Honor podcast is produced for the OBBM Network podcast and protected under copyright law. For content permissions, please submit your request to abadgeofhonor.com on the content page. For OBBM Network programming information, please call 214-714-0495.